Welcome everybody to the Spark Festival. And this session is going to be called Meet the Filmmakers. And I'm super pleased to introduce to you today Joanna Quinn and Les Mills, the directors and writers of Affairs of the Art. So, hi Joanna, hi Les.
Hi, hi Sue.
I'm very good, thank you. So my name's Sue Rowe. I'm a visual effects supervisor. I'm here in Canada, and Joanna and Les are in Wales, in Cardiff in South Wales, which is where we met each other 20 years ago, at least, when I used to do some work for you on Britannia, I believe.
Yes, you're on the credits of Britannia, yeah.
So we're going to get into it. We're going to get into talking about Affairs of the Art. Obviously, a beautiful film. It made me laugh and cry all in the 16 minutes that we watched it. And it's absolutely amazing because you brought back your protagonist, our famous character, Beryl. So let's get into what the film is about. The film's
just one of the things that it's about ambition, it's about obsession, and most of all, I guess, it's about learning about Beryl's immediate family and her back history, which we've never done before. The characters with Beryl before have all been friends in like work situations or in occasions like a wedding. So now we'll get to know Beryl's family.
I think one of the reasons that we involve more characters in this film was because this is the fourth Beryl film, and people have been saying, oh, we want another Beryl film, and we were thinking, oh gosh, we've done Beryl, you know. And so we thought, actually, if we see her when she's young and then see her family, it'll make her character a little bit more three-dimensional, and we'll see other aspects of her character and learn more about her through her relations and relationships with her family. So that's one of the reasons why we did that.
It's you touch on so many things during this movie. I mean, some of them are, you know, quite melancholy. We have this moment where Beryl is looking back on her life almost. She touches on regrets, and so one of the things that's really amazing about animation is you can touch on so many subjects while you're making this film. Do you think Beryl has regrets? What's made her? I'm going to change that a little bit. Affairs of the Art seems to be a little bit more melancholy than some of your previous films. In the past, Beryl's always been on top. You know, she's come back fighting. She takes on the stripper. She takes on Vince. But this film seems to, she's reflecting more on her life. How would you describe how she's changed over the years?
Well, I suppose, like we said earlier, it's her childhood ambitions that we sort of explore, and she explores. I mean, we know because we've all been to art school, I take it, right? So that was what Beryl's ambition was going to be, just to go to art school. But as it says in the movie, that excuse me, she got pregnant, like a lot of teenage girls do, and basically gave up the whole idea and became a mother and a worker again. But later on in her life, she never gave up that ambition, and we see that coming forth, her ambition to go to art school or to become an artist of some repute, you know. So
perhaps as well, it's because we're older filmmakers and we're quite like, the older you get, the more reflective you become. Like Girls' Night Out was like, yeah, I'm all young and going for it, and now it's like, damn, why didn't I do that then, I suppose. And so I think what we wanted to do as well was to look at the lives of, you know, a lot of women like Beryl who wanted to do these things, but because of her social situation wasn't able to. You know, she couldn't go to college and she couldn't do all the things she wanted to do, and ended up having to get married, have a kid and get a job, you know, and so it all went down the pan. But her sister, on the other hand, Beverly, did everything that she wanted to do. And so we've used Beverly as a role model for Beryl. And so Beryl then thinks, sod it, I can do it, and decides to pick up where she left off when she got pregnant, when she was a young thing, and be an artist.
Yeah, I think it's all about exploring characters in a depth that we haven't actually done before. And some of the characters are based on people we know, people in my family, right? So the observational side of it is very strong. And also the ideas, you know, probably too many ideas, come from immediate experience of certain family members. For example, Colin, the son, is based on my brother, you know, very closely. He hasn't seen it yet. So I don't know what he's going to think about it, but you know, there's always some kind of elements of in people's families of people who got these certain kinds of character traits, like obsessions or idiosyncrasies or hang-ups, or it's a very interesting area to explore, and anybody can do that because you've all got families. So I think we exploited that a little bit more in this film than any other film we've ever made.
And even the scene where Beverly is a child and goes and sneaks in and looks at her grandma's body.
Oh, that was my favorite bit. I just love it. Yeah, because I think that's the great thing about animation. You can make that storytelling way. You know, if that was a live action film, perhaps it wouldn't have. But because you could study, you know, the leg swinging of the character, studying that. And I think as a child, we're all fascinated. Perhaps as an adult, we're all fascinated by certain macabre things. But I thought that was that based on a true story?
Yeah, I mean, it was a sort of Les was actually in the room when
quite young, you know. I think I was about 8, and my grandma moved in with us, as a lot of when you get old. In those days, the family took responsibility, and so we had this 83, I think she was, 80-year-old woman, and you know, so the contrast was amazing, and she gradually deteriorated, as we all do. And I was actually in a room alone with the house, and she was lying on a sort of sofa. She made this noise and died, you know, and I kind of didn't know what to do. I sort of heard it, and then I realized after a couple of minutes she was gone. And that was a very, very strong, poignant moment in my life, which I forgot about then for years and years and years. And then making this film, I sort of, because there's a gran in it, I thought I referred back to that moment. So, I mean, I don't know how people take it, you know, take that kind of whole thing about death. But death in those days was a sort of social thing that happened, and people came in from next door and officiated, as it says in the, you know, there's always one old lady in the street who came in and bandaged up the face and put pennies and all that kind of, and that's in it too. So it's very, very, I think we're very heavy into observational stuff, you know.
But also when my grandma died, no, before she died, and she in a residential home towards the end, and I used to go and visit her. And at the time I was making The Wife of Bath.
Yeah.
And of course, in The Wife of Bath, there was the hag character. And of course, she's all long and saggy. And so I did look at I did do that. I sort of lifted the sheet, you know, to look at, really just observationally, to have a look at her body, you know, because she literally looked, she was so old, you know, and everything had dragged, all her skin. So, I mean, it sounds disrespectful, but it wasn't really, because she was my grandma anyway. And it was just a fascination to see what happens to the body, because you don't often get that opportunity to draw because I do a lot of life drawing, you don't draw really old people and, you know, whose bodies have changed that much. And so Beverly lifting the sheet and looking under was actually me.
So there's two of us in that one
yes.
scene, really. So, you know, I think it's quite good to think of it like that.
I think, yeah, it's just the we see this a lot with people who are intense studying their art. You know, I find myself as a visual effects supervisor, you know, sometimes I'm looking at explosions online thinking, now that simulation doesn't look quite right. And you're like, oh my God, that's real.
Yes.
And, you know, you can, but just that observational skill and dare I say a little obsessiveness. I think you looked into that in a beautiful way. And it's just that thing about animation can tell that story. You can move very smoothly from something sad to something happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just beautiful.
Well, we lightened it up a bit, I think, by the kick in a bucket thing, you know, which I mean, you know, I don't know what in Catholic cultures they do that. They put holy water in a bowl underneath and I just sort of de-romanticize it a bit using a bucket and use the kind of thing about kicking the bucket as a humorous thing to lighten the whole thing up, you know.
I like it. Storytelling is so important in animation. Les, tell me a little bit about your background. You know, how did you develop your storytelling skills?
Oh God. Well, like I said, I did fine art in Cardiff and in Goldsmiths in London, and it was figurative and it was optical and it was. And then I got a teaching fellowship in Rutgers University, New Jersey, and so. And when I went to the States, everything changed because I was right next to New York and the whole conceptual thing was going on. And I changed my ideas and I actually bought a little camera as well at that point. And I just realized that anything is possible in the sense of not being limited to, because I was a painter. And I kind of realized that film could actually encompass all those things, you know, through narrative, basically. But I was interested in documentaries, so I used to watch an awful lot of really brilliant documentaries, and that of course is observational. So I put the two things together, and I started to. I don't class myself as a writer. I just tell stories and I write them down basically, and if they're any good, we maybe use them. So it's a very simple methodology, really.
Well, perfect combination between the two of you with Joanna and her storytelling figuratively. A brilliant combination there. Joanna, tell me a little bit about your style. It's instantly recognizable. You know, your fluid lines, very expressive. And Beryl and Bev, you know, are so characterful, but they're not this stylized beauty. You know, you don't make this beautiful Disney-esque character. You know, it's all everything's out there, as you were describing. You know, with your grandmother's wrinkles. You love the line and the expressiveness. Tell me about your style.
Yeah, I've actually got some drawings here just to show you. So the film was all drawn on paper. And so this is Beverly when she stretches her face.
Oh, I love it.
This is the so it was all done on this size paper with you know, with the normal registration holes at the bottom, and then scanned into the computer and coloured in TV Paint. And I did initially try and do the animation on digitally, you know, on TV Paint. But I just couldn't get. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed playing with TV Paint because I love computers, but I was just missing the feel of pencil on paper. And we animated, you know, for about 6 months on TV Paint, and the animation was getting more and more rigid as well. It's a different way. It's a different bit of your brain you use when you animate digitally. it's less intuitive because you've got to make decisions all the time because you're pressing buttons and changing. But with when you draw with a pencil, it's just brain, hand, pencil. So it's much more intuitive. And so Les said, well, why don't you stop and get the light box out and carry on doing it on paper, go back to paper.
She wasn't enjoying the process.
No.
In the way that, when she draws, she gets this kind of, it's obsessional because she naturally does it, but there's a certain liquidity and quality about her line when she draws freely with a pencil on a sheet, which she really couldn't capture, I don't think. Well, she said, well, give it a go, we invest in this stuff. She gave it a go and she was getting gradually more and more depressed, and also the animation and the drawing was just getting very rigid and lifeless. And she started, rather than me say stop it, she kind of articulated her depression. And I said, well, forget it, let's get back to what you really enjoy and what people enjoy about your animation, which is that liveliness and that quality of the line. And so she did, And
I think it made me realize that, and it's one of the things that we were saying in our discussion with Candy Guard, was, if you're in a position to make your own film and create your own animation, and you're not working with somebody and having to do something in a systematic animation-y way, then really you're creating art, and you're doing what you enjoy, and the enjoyment of doing it is as important as the final outcome. And so I think the fluidity of the line that you're seeing is my enjoyment of drawing, and I just love it. I just really love drawing. And I have done jobs for other people, and I have been asked to animate sections in pieces of animation, and they're always really average, because I'm not doing what I do best, and I'm just,
what you do is average when you do that.
When I do that, it's just very average. And because it's not how I like to work, and what I actually love doing is drawing, and I love the challenge of going from one drawing to another drawing. So you've got two key, the movement between one and to get to the other. And I always challenge myself and try and twist the movement and make it interesting. And so if you make the direction of the movement interesting, then it's fun to do and it's fun to watch as well. But what I'll do is I'll flick this so you can see.
She loves to do this too.
We love it too.
This is hang on a minute.
She loves to animate live, really.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I did some live animation once in a film festival in this huge auditorium with all these students, and I was doing a live walk cycle, and I was saying, yes, you do, but I got really nervous. And I think it's because there was technology and I had to think about so many things, and so I animated and I said, then you got the key, and then you put the other key, and I was going, which is the key, and I got all, and then when I filmed it and showed it, they walk backwards.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that was embarrassing. All the students loved that. But
I'll get out of the way.
Oops. Oh, I guess a bit awkward.
Oh, yeah.
A bit more on the top.
Oh, the perfect transition. I love it.
So yeah, so that's anyway. And I think what I also do is I spend time doing the key drawings, making sure that they're really strong, and then the in-between drawings I do quite quickly because that's just movement, and so I don't labor too much over the in-between drawings, and that keeps them light and moving, so that they feel free, because they've got a different weight to the key drawings sometimes.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because one of the hardest things surely is to upscale your work. This is a 16-minute movie. You didn't do it on your own. How do you make sure that your style is imprinted all the way through the movie? I know some animators like to do everything themselves, but you surely had to get some assistant help. And how do you make sure that stays all the way through it?
Well, because we did commercials for a long time, we really developed a good system, because we had to get the ads finished in 12 weeks, and then it went down to 8 weeks. So we didn't have very long to do it, and that's idea, animating, do it, and then working with a big team. So I couldn't do everything. So what I ended up doing on an advert is what I ended up doing on this film to some extent. And that on the adverts, I would do the storyboard and all the storytelling at the beginning, the storyboard, and making sure that that's all okay, giving it to an animator, then the animator would animate it. I'd get it back after being a director and saying, no, change this, change that, get it back, and then take the key drawings and I draw over them on another sheet of paper, and those would be my keys, and then giving it to an in-betweener who would in-between my style using the animator's drawings as a guide underneath. So it looked like I'd animated it all, but actually I was going over the animation of the animator. And so with this film, I mean, I did it was basically me and an animator called James Nutting, and we animated pretty much all of it, but there were quite a few other little animators who did bits, scenes here and scenes there, but basically it was me and James splitting it. And so when I did it, I just animated like that, just straight ahead, because I didn't have to communicate anything to anybody. I just did it with Marcy Rojas normally doing the in-betweens. People, you tend to work with the same people because they can do it. But with James, he just worked in the way he draws. He draws completely differently to me, but he's got a really good sense of humor. And so the humor comes through in his drawings. And so he drew in his style. That's fine, as long as the volume was about right. It was more the acting. It was the acting that he does that's important. It's the little looks of, the quirky body language. And then the same thing as the adverts. I'd take his drawings, pick out the keys, and then give them to Marcy. And then she would follow them through, making sure she doesn't lose any of the humor, which is the hard thing, because sometimes it sort of goes a bit, and people think, oh, I'll straighten that out. But actually it was the wobbliness that made it funny. So it's, but yeah, so basically I go from being, if I'm working with a team, I'm storyboard person, then I'm director, and then I'm chief tweaker. And then I get everything at the end and go over everything. So right. I have the final control freak hand.
Quinifying.
Yes, I quinify everything.
Quinification, if you like.
Quinimating.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that's different with this film is the lush color and your color palettes. They tell a story in themselves as each of the segments of the movie goes by. And I noticed that you've got way more detail in the background. When we worked on Britannia, for example, it was very simple line. The backgrounds were minimalistic and the color was very muted. But you've moved into this new realm. How did you find that? I presume that's the digital influence of the paint and the color.
Yeah, yes, it was difficult because a lot of the scenes, it's very interior. The film is very interior, and it's based on observation, and they like Beryl and her sister spend a lot of time in the house, and so there's environments that Britannia was sort of, it was just
space, basically,
with a moving camera, so it was easy to get away with it, but it was really hard to get away with not having to do backgrounds, and backgrounds are my weakest. I hate backgrounds.
I think it's because within backgrounds you create a space which you become a prisoner of, and you stiffen up and you move and change. So I think that's one of our criticisms, I think, of the film, is that there's too many interiors, and there's not enough kind of the kind of quality that you just talked about in Britannia, where there's no references, apart from maybe one or two times, where there's backgrounds interfering with the main action. So it's a lot more vibrant, it's a lot more interesting, it's a lot more, the animation is great, you know, because there's no, you're not a prisoner of anything. You're a prisoner of the character, what you're trying to say with the character. In this film, I think we became prisoners to an extent of all these bloody interiors, you know? and we didn't quite know. It was different to the last film. I don't know whether you saw Family Ties. That the structure of that was dictated by the format, which was video diary. So everything in it moved very, very quickly and very difficult to do. And the backgrounds were done in a very different way. Some backgrounds were, you know, huge, wide things. Somebody do that, you know, and then Joe. This one, they're very simple corners of rooms or skirting boards, and you think, oh Christ, you know,
not another corner.
It wasn't. We were saying this at the time,
but it was hard to get away from it.
We became prisoners of it, as Beryl was, or Colin became in the film, in this limited space. And you know, if we did it again, we'd probably lose a lot of that, you know, somehow deliberately.
But it's still hard if it's an interior, and you've established it in one scene. It's hard to make it disappear in another scene, you know, because you've already established it as being a room. But the color, Les designed the color with Caran d'Ache, so all of the key drawings were printed out, and so Les did the color setups, and then we gave the color setups to Mia Rose Goddard, who did all of the TV paintwork, put it all together and did all the coloring and everything. And we just tried to get as close to the hand-drawn thing as possible. It was really hard because it is digital and it is completely different. And so we tried to use different techniques of different layers and textures, you know, to try and make it look hand done. But that was the system.
Oh, interesting. And could you add a little flicker to it? Because that's the amazing thing from your original drawings. I think it's because, you know, the lead line that you're using, there's usually a little bit of smudging that goes on, and that it gives the paper a beautiful quality. Did you find that was lost and you added it back in, or did that?
Yeah, we did add it back in. We had to add it back in. Yeah, so we had lots of smudgy paper different cycles, which we then fed in to try and make it look dirtier. Because the trouble with digital stuff is it has to go clean, because obviously what we wanted to do is keep it all dirty, but then you have problems when you try to see through layers if it's dirty, and it was just really hard to do that digitally, you know, to keep that really rough quality. So we did have to sort of recreate it a little bit.
Well, no, I think it worked, because actually when I looked at it, I thought you had done it all on paper, and I couldn't imagine how you'd kept those the colouring so smooth. But now I know your secret. It's a beautiful. I was going to say, one of the things that perhaps, or what I found when I moved from traditional animation into computer animation, that was hard is you want to go in your work, you go from, as you described, one room to another, or, you know, Beryl putting the Wonder Bra on, you know, it's very fluid and she's moving around and the action's amazing. If you were to try and do that with a 3D character, you would have to build the asset of the bra in a certain way, and then, you know, if you wanted to ping that off, you'd have to build another asset, and then digitally making them, you know, in between. That I found that the hardest thing when I moved into CG, because I'd just be saying to everyone, I just want to cheat it. I don't care that it's not the same bra that I'm breaking up, and so yeah, the digital actually does make things. I think it holds you back in a way. So I think your combination of keeping the fluidity of your lines and the digital side is amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing more.
It's interesting because when we were doing the adverts, we created the Charmin Bear drawn, and of course it went 3D and CGI, and so I worked with the company to recreate the bear just to make sure that the character translates CGI. And for me, that was the first time I've really seen computer animation, character, moving characters around, a character that existed as a 2D suddenly becomes 3D. And it was really fascinating because I'd taken quite a lot for granted and thought, oh my goodness, this is really hard. Just the way that it's very easy to stretch a shape and and then you've lost it, and I thought, oh no, it all bounces back. But no, then suddenly my admiration of CGI animators went
okay, let's talk a little bit more about your characters. Les, is Beryl in fact your muse?
Oh, I don't think Beryl is, but I mean, I've lived with her for so long because it sounds like a relationship.
Does Joanna know?
It's a personality that I like. I get involved with, and some of the things that she says and thinks, I think they've been developed over 4 films, and I love to do that. I love to. And the other characters are the same way. They're all, like I said before, observational. So I enjoy those moments that Joanna expresses very well in a kind of strange, quirky look. A very, very simple, expressive thing that says a lot. So, and I got to be very careful because I, overwrite her. And we always have this. We used to have this argument about, why do you have to say that when you can see that, and vice versa? It's a sort of constant.
Every film we make, we go, right, this is it. We're going to crack this. We will not have dialogue when you can see the action happening, and we just can't do it.
Well, no, I don't know, because then we now we've been looking at a lot of films that are coming out right now, and they're very, very simple, and and you think, how do they do it? And they manage to, we were watching a film yesterday, like Dina, what's her name?
Yes, Dina.
Can't pronounce her second name. Russian animator. She made a film called Ties. Beautiful film, and. It is so, every part of it is so simple and straightforward, but beautifully done. And we sort of sometimes hanker for that kind of quality, and we just can't do it. We
do everything at like 120%. Number 11.
I think she did in Britannia. She did it. She managed it. Because
that's because Sue was working on it.
Oh, there we are. Oh, there we are. It sounded Welsh.
There we are.
Oh, there we are. See,
Marvelous.
Anyway, I mean that's a problem with when you write. I tend to write sort of short stories, and because there's no visual element to it, I can be expressive and more descriptive. But of course, when you work with somebody who's a brilliant, illustrator, animator, craftswoman, whatever, you've got to kind of sacrifice things and get rid of things. And
right.
If, as she says, if the drawing does it better, then you use a drawing as the major part of it all.
And how many iterations did the script go through story-wise? Did you write it all first and then the animation came afterwards?
Oh yeah, I mean the script actually. God, how long did it?
Well, the script took bloody years. I mean, really, well, if we go back right to the beginning, Les wrote a Beryl series, and there was a series of 5 films, which Channel 4 asked us to do, and it was going to be on every night before the news, the Channel 4 news, and so they were
8 o'clock. Great spot, because that never happens.
Little
right?
5-minute films. And so that was great. And so Les wrote 5 scripts, all with Beryl, but different episodes. And then there was a change of personnel in Channel 4, and it all disappeared. They didn't, because we hadn't signed anything. They didn't carry through. But because we had started on one of them, which was Family Ties, Dreams and Desires, Family Ties. They were committed to doing that one. So we did that one, and we made it a little bit longer. But then we had all these other scripts. And so actually this film is a combination of a lot of those scripts put together, which is why the structure isn't quite linear. It's more like observation of character, you know. It's not quite
chaotic.
It's chaotic.
Like
but that's why, because it's all like glued together. Because
it's not, yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, the last film we did, the wedding video one, Beryl wanted to be an avant-garde filmmaker, was very straightforward in the structure, the narrative, and everything else. And in this one, because it was one idea, one simple idea, whereas this one was, like Joe just said, a combination of these other 4 Beryl ideas that had elements in them that were great, you know, and we sort of bashed it all together. No, we didn't.
Probably should have been a bit more ruthless. But,
yeah, you know what I mean. But and it dragged on. I mean, I think I wrote it in 2007 or 8, roughly, and then we didn't get around to doing any of the visual sides of it or storyboard until much later. Hung about historically, you know. It's a warning to everybody, you know, not to get it done as quickly as possible.
Far too long.
You know, and you get very stale. You lose your motivation. The animation maybe gets a bit, you know, oh God, you know. So we learned quite a lot of lessons in this latest film, really.
But once the script was done, it still wasn't, you know, absolutely, you know, we still thought, well, we'll work that out when we animate it. But it was enough, and I did the storyboard, and then that was it. We didn't go back to the script. Right. Once the script became the storyboard, then the storyboard became the animatic, and then the animatic became the animation. And then we would change bits and bobs, but really the script had gone by that point, and it only reappeared when we changed it and turned them into actors' scripts when we recorded their voices, you know, but really it had gone. Yeah.
Oh. When did you do that then? Wasn't it?
You have, I helped, I don't know. Littles.
One of the scenes that I love is when Ivor is helping Beryl with her pursuit of art, and he's running up and down the stairs for her, buck naked. And your artwork for that, Joanna, is just fantastic. I got this image of him, you know, at the bottom of the stairs going, "Did we get it, love?" And she's like,
"How are we doing this, Bev? Walking or running?"
Dynamism, velocity, energy, speed, love. I want speed.
Here we go.
Oh dear God!
Oh! No, we missed it again, Ive.
Oh, you're obsessed, woman!
Come on, I know! It's the movement in between, the moment of change. I've gotta capture it!
I'm suffering for your art!
It's hyperfuturism, love. Go for it now, come on!
Oh! Oh, God, I need a cup of tea.
It's really great to see a little bit more of Ivor. Can you tell me a little bit about how that character has developed? Of course, I remember him in a girls' night out, sitting in front of the TV, grunting. I'm assuming it's the same kind of character. It represents more.
I think we probably wanted to give him a little bit more character.
Yeah, I think people were saying, you know, poor Ivor, you know, because. But actually, in Girls' Night Out, he's just a miserable sod, sat in the bloody, you know, not interested in anything she's doing, a couch potato of the highest order. And then gradually he became more. Although actually, there was more of him in Body Beautiful. If you remember the factory film, when she comes home, he's hoovering, right? And
he's proud of her at the end.
Yeah, and wondering what she's up to because she's doing all these exercises and trying to improve her body. And at the end, he actually says, "That's my Beryl out there." So he became a much more attractive character, and he had a role in a sense In the next film, though, actually,
No,
you only hear his voice
Yes.
right at the beginning. You just hear
You
him.
put him back in his
"You all
box.
right, love?" You know, and that's it. You never see him. So in this film, I guess because we wanted to explore the Black history and the family, then he became a lot more. The idea of him being the model of Beryl was perfect for because it starts like that and ends like that, basically.
And actually, Les did lots of character profiles of Iva that we ended up not doing, and he ended up just being her muse and support. But there was a whole section that we didn't do, which is how Beryl fell in love with him and why she fell in love with him. And it's because he was such a brilliant dancer. And and so there were all these passages of him dancing in sort of Latino dancing. And then there was another idea that he had ambitions, and one of his ambitions was to be a vet. And so he ended up looking after all of the neighborhood pets. And so there would always be like a constant ring on the doorbell with children bringing hamsters and things that have got like a bent paw or something, and then he put them on the kitchen table and mend them, you know, without a license.
Ironically, our daughter, who's now 25, is a vet.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. What a good. No, I
So
think
maybe Ivan needs his own series.
yeah. Yeah, no, he's written in such a warm way, and I think that was something that really I found endearing about the film. That, you know, there's so often in animation, when you're trying to tell a story in a short amount of time, characters become stereotypes, and their relationships seem so warm and therefore believable. Yeah, we really loved it. And then combining that with your artwork, there's a lot of nudity in your work, Joanna. Shall we talk about that?
Well, yeah, it's easier than clothes. You don't have to do.
Well, yeah, right.
You don't have to do.
Now I've got you.
No, I love a bit of life drawing and a bit of nudity.
Speed, love, I want speed.
Here we go.
Oh, dear God!
No, we missed it again, I've.
Oh, you're obsessed,
Come
woman.
on, I know. It's the movement in between, the moment of change. I've got to capture
I'm
it.
suffering for your art.
It's hyperfuturism, love. Go for it now. Come on.
Oh, oh God, I need a cup of tea.
You do find the most excruciating, embarrassing moments. I mean, Beryl gets herself into some incredible pickles. Is that any of the things that she goes through? Is it based on any of your life story?
Pickles.
Think pickles.
Have you in fact ever engaged with a stripper?
Yes, I have engaged with a stripper.
But
I didn't.
Oh, you mean
But I didn't take
observationally.
Yeah, I didn't take the song off. I was at the back.
That was for the first film.
Yeah, I was just watching. I was just sketching.
She went to a male strippers,
several,
and was absolutely astounded by. This was what, mid-70s?
Oh my God, the women were mad.
They were just like raucous and grabbing at things, you know, and totally like you never saw portrayed anywhere, and that you never, and it because it's blokes who go to strippers. In those days, it was. So it was a sort of
but the pub
breath of fresh air.
I drew the interior was based on this pub in the Elephant and Castle in London, and there was a pub on one side, and it had like a saloon bar or something next door, you know, where they had events and things, and it was all women. And at one point, and the women were just built up into this frenzy, you know, where they were all moving closer and closer to the stripper, and you could see the stripper was sort of like looking at his watch. And they all just, because they were getting drunker and louder and more confident. And then suddenly the door opened and these three men came in chatting, and they didn't realize that where they had walked into. And all the women turned around and tried to tear their clothes off. And they were like, oh, they were trying to get out.
I bet they did when they got home as well.
But yes, I've done that.
Well, that's where, I mean, you see it in that film, don't
we
you?
both worked in factories, so we've done that too.
Oh, you've done that, yeah.
I worked in a pharmaceutical factory,
I worked
making
in,
laxatives.
I worked in a bread factory, as in the beginning of that film.
Yes.
Right, you see the cakes in the
cakes.
beginning.
That was Leslie's
I worked
factory.
in a factory which catered for Marks and Spencer's, the posh stuff, and common stuff there, and it was totally kind of class, you know. All the good stuff went there, and all grotty stuff, bread, went there, and it was an experience, you know, very hot.
Let's chat about the children, the kids, Beryl and Bev as children in Affairs of the Art. We see Bev has a sort of a strange addiction to taxidermy. See, I'm bringing it back around to taxidermy. I'm fascinated.
Rudy died. She stuffed him too. Then she put Rudy on the mantelpiece. Mum said,
Oh, thank God. No more dogs' doodles.
But we get to see a little window on those two kids growing up. How did you work on those characters? You're so used to doing adults, as we've discussed. What did you find different about animating those kids?
Animating or writing them? Which one? Which?
Oh, both. I'm going to start with writing then. How was it writing?
Well, no, I mean, the characters were delineated, written. Again, observational in my own childhood. Not that I did anything like that, of course. We won't go there, right? You know, and you see it portrayed in mainline films. I remember seeing ages ago that Gunther Grass film, Tin Drum. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
Fantastic film. Anyway, there's a scene in it where these young kids, boys and girls, are in this yard, in an open yard, and they got a fire and a kettle or something boiling, and they're dropping live snails or whatever into it. And then kids do that. They do the most awful things, you know. I mean, I don't know whether your childhood was peppered with things like that, but mine certainly was. I'm sure yours were as well, you know. Getting a magnifying glass when there's sun out and incinerating ants and all that. I mean, they're almost horrendous things, you know. The kids do these lovely little, you know, kids. They're just as, you know, brutal in a sense as adults can be. You know.
Doing the kids wasn't any different really than doing the adults, except that it was more fun because people expect kids to be cute and sweet, and it was quite nice to make Beverly evil. Not evil, but,
well,
pretty
Colin
evil.
had a temper too, as demonstrated by his crossbow.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, you've got raw energy and you've got raw feelings when you're a kid. You're not developed and not mediated by anything other than your everyday experiences and your friends and family, and so and they stick in your mind. You know, I've got a huge amount of stuff that I can remember. I'm sure you all do, right? Yeah.
One of the things I say to my daughter, she's joining the world of anime, and she's currently working on degree film. And story, get your story sorted. It's one of the things I regret about my film, my degree film. I made it all about the end. I was like, I don't even know what this story means. So story point is so important. Do you keep each other on track for that kind of thing? Joanna, do you ever say you're modeling off on something now, or you know, how do you edit each other?
No, it's definitely a team thing, isn't it? You know, I comment on his writing and he's ruthlessly mean about my drawing.
But we're very much like I keep saying, observers, you know, real of ordinary people, not ordinary people, but anybody basically. And a lot of the stories come from that. You know, they're all around you. You hear a chance remark in a park or somewhere, and it's so funny, and it's so ridiculous or absurd or awful that you just use it as the language of storytelling. You know.
And I sketch. I've got loads of sketchbooks.
I mean, you know,
so I draw people. Landscapes, no, I'm rubbish at those. But people, I'm always.
Her latest obsession is Judge Judy. You know, the Judge Judy folio, where she, and they're great. I mean, you've got this fantastic forum with these posing characters and amazing, you know, and she draws them great, very quickly. You know.
No, characters great. Love a juicy character.
We have to tell you that we write character profiles, very, very deep character profiles.
They're fun.
Yeah, they are. You know, and they become interesting because of that. Then, of course, you've got to take them all down and simplify them and all that. And so you sort of lose some of that, but that's the way it is. But in the same way as she draws in a very intense way and an observational way, I do that about anything, really, my own experiences, but everyday things.
Well, tell me about Bev then, because she seems to she symbolizes perhaps more than just this successful sister character. We've all got sisters and stories to tell. But one of the things that is so interesting about the Beryl character and Bev, it's almost that they want to be each other, or they're transformed to be each other. And you do a beautiful transition during the film, Joanna, where we see child Bev go to adult Bev, and you know, at the end with the sunglasses and the reflection of palm trees, her glasses, little details like that are amazing. But tell me about Bev. Who is Bev based on, and what does she symbolize for you?
Well, funny enough, she's the character who isn't based on, she's based on a few people we have met, but she is more of a symbol for somebody, for Beryl to play off. And so... yeah,
I think, and also I think that the fact that she's sort of, you know, unusual in the sense that she shows ruthlessness and brutality in the sense, you know, I mean, it can't get more ruthless than stabbing a ladybird, you know. Ladybirds are the symbol of childhood, aren't they? You know, decorated storybooks, and suddenly there's bang, you know, she wipes it out with a thing, and so that was quite unusual in a sense for characters in children in animation that tend to be, like you said earlier, kind of idealized and perfect and nice and all the rest of it, but they're not really, you know. So we tend to kind of go down different pathways. Yeah. With Bev. And seeing her develop historically was great.
Yeah.
But and seeing her being able to, through her dreams, do these amazing things, which I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that experience, even though I didn't experience it. We did go to Lenin's tomb physically, and they wouldn't let her draw there though. So she did though. She could draw if she moved, which is ironic. So she did sort of draw in a kind of animation way. But I mean, as the fantastic side of things intrigues me in that it's based on historical events, not fantasy, in that sort of way that most of the big feature animation things are fantasy situations and people and kids and all that. And so I think Beryl is not quite like that. She's her own fantasist, and I enjoyed writing things like that about her, you know.
Well,
didn't you?
I was going to ask about the next stage for Beryl. I'd be interested to hear what you plan for her next. It sounds like you've written them all already.
Yeah, probably. We've been talking about this. I mean, we've been talking about it for ages. I mean, at the moment, we're just recovering from making the film, because it was quite intensive for about 6 years. And what with COVID and everything's gone a bit sort of.
We've never actually seen it in front of an
We still
audience.
haven't seen it big. No.
Wow.
So,
You know, so
we're about to. So
it's a big anticlimax in the sense that normally, you know, when you make a film and you dying to see what the audience think and what kind of response it'll get, and you're in that dark space and lots of people you know from the past, other anime, all that vanished overnight, and so it was like a real kind of anticlimax, you know.
yeah.
I mean, Zoom calls are great, you know. I mean, I'm enjoying
Yes, we've
this.
done lots of these Q&As, which has been
We've done
fantastic.
that, that's all we've done,
But,
you know.
but it's, I think that's the really positive thing about all of the online
Yeah.
festivals, because not everybody goes to film festivals, so it's enabled a much broader range of people, you know, to Q&As with
and participate
and watch. And you know, I've seen so many great things, and so that's been really good. But in terms of like what to do next, whatever we do, we have thought of a few little ideas, but whatever we've done that we do will be really, 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 really short.
Very short.
No backgrounds. And we're looking at, well, rather than thinking big film, we're thinking, you know, what can we put on online? You know, we're thinking of the different platforms, and so we've got some ideas, but we haven't started yet. We really want to see this film first on the big screen, and then we can relax and go on to the next stage. But it feels like unfinished business at the moment. You know.
But it reminds me of a story that I always remember about you, Joanna, that when we were at film festivals, or I must have been in screenings with you, and we'd be watching any movie, and then when something funny happened, you'd be, oh, your laughter was in there the whole time, and I'd be like, oh, Joanna's in this screening. Oh, cool.
That's it. She just did it. She just did it. It's sort of very distinctive.
Yeah, amazing. And yes, that must be so hard, because, you know, I do think, you know, storytellers, animators, we are directors and actors ourselves, but we're too shy. We're too scared to get up and do it ourselves. So
She's not. She's a performer. Oh God,
I think you are a performer, but getting up on stage is a different thing. I think we always, I think that's why I got into animation, because I was too scared to do it myself. So I'd make my character go up and do all of these things. So one of the things that you've been denied, as you say, is sitting in a dark room and having your audience watch. And I'm so looking forward to that moment that you can hear the hoots of laughter.
Yeah, because the funny thing about watching your film is, because you know what your intention was, and you know what you were thinking would make people laugh and what would make people perhaps be a little bit bored, and you think, oh, you sort of predict what, you know, what the audience will react to. And then when you sit in an audience and people laugh at something completely different, and you go, oh my God, why would they laugh at that? And then they don't laugh at the thing that you thought that they would laugh at, you know. So
I wanted to just touch on a few things. In your careers, you've done you know, your feature films. We've seen Barrel in many stages over the years. You've also done a lot of commercials. How do you balance that? How do you take time out of your working day to say, I'm going to do my own indulgent film, if you like? I want to recreate Barrel again. How do you document that, or how do you separate that out in your head and your working day?
yeah.
I think that when you first get into commercials, you know, then for the first period, you're learning the ropes of how to deal with agencies, how to deal with distance, you know, because a lot of the ads were done for the States, so you only ever saw the agency people at the end maybe of an ad when they came all trooped over to London or somewhere. So it's sort of it's strange, really. You start off learning the ropes of how to deal in that specific arena, and then gradually you get more skilled at it, and the deadlines are very, very important. So it gives you a discipline which is ruthless, and it's something that you learn. And when you work on your own, you don't have that, and that sometimes can be, you know, counterproductive. So and then when we were doing a lot of ads for the States, we had a team of nearly 40 people working for us, right?
Yeah, 40 or 50, yeah.
And knocking out an ad every 9 weeks, you know, on air. And so we delegated. A lot of it was delegated to teams or people in a big situation like that. And so we were able simultaneously then, though, because she wasn't involved in she was very much involved, but not so much in the whole process as she is when she's working on her own film. So we were able to simultaneously make our own films at the same time. I mean, we made Family Ties, didn't we, at the same time? Without a problem. We made it in 2 years, didn't we?
It was hard work.
It was, yeah, but we had the resources and the crew, if you like, to do that, and that was fantastic, you know. And it may be sometimes really tedious working in advertising, you know, the pressure and everything else, but sometimes it can be very helpful to you, instilling a discipline and helping you in your own process. And
it's also getting the priorities right as well when you're doing a commercial project, and you're trying to do your best, and you want it to be, you know, you want to pour your soul into it and make it the most beautiful thing possible. But at the end of the day, those aren't the same priorities as the company trying to sell their product. You know, they just want something that will tick all of the boxes and be lovely, but it doesn't have to be super lovely. People probably wouldn't notice the things that you're noticing. So for me, that was very hard to let go, because most of the ads were based on my style, you know, so they wanted it to look like I had done it. So for me, it's quite hard to let go, because I felt I was sort of cheating, you know, because it was my style, therefore I needed to do everything. But of course, that's not true. So
you couldn't anyway.
You couldn't. So I ended up, as I said before, working out a system, you know, that allowed me as much control as possible without me actually doing it all of the time. And we got a really good team. In the end, we got an excellent team, and really good like production coordinators, Catherine Unwin and Jonathan Edwards. You know, they were fantastic. And so they would take the pressure off and organize everything. And I remember I fell off a horse once. I don't horse ride. That was my first time, and I fell off and I broke my ribs, and I couldn't move. And we were so busy at work, you know, we had all these ads to do, and I was lying down going, I can't move. And it was just so funny, because Catherine, who was the production coordinator at the time, said, don't worry, Joanna, this is great. Bye, just rest. And of course, they just got on with it without me. And it was much smoother, you know. So they all joke, we got all the deadlines on time, you know, without me going, yeah, but what's that tiny?
I know, that's super interesting.
That was a good lesson. I thought, oh, you know, the fact that it went smoother without me.
I always say, when I talk about visual effects, it takes a village. You know, everyone goes, oh, you know, what bit did you do? There's so many people involved. And, it's a good model for our production. And
I feel terribly guilty getting all of the credit as the director, because it's a team effort. Even if the team is small, it's still, everybody's given their all, you know, to the project.
And tell me about National Film Board. So you collaborated with them on this show, but I believe that you made the movie. You have a Beryl fund, I believe. Tell me about that.
Well, when we were making ads, as we just talked about, the financial side of things, as everybody knows, you know, you get fairly big bucks. You know, you do a lot of hard work, but you get rewards. You know, and you can get sort of enthralled by that and never make a film, or you know. So what we did was we put money aside from the profits, if you like, of working on those, and we said if we ever start making ads and we don't get a sponsor, or we don't or the television company stop commissioning, we got this production fund, and that's what we did. And that's basically where most of the money comes on this film we just made. So that was another kind of fruitful and thing that happened making ads, and we learned from.
But the reason that the National Film Board came on board was that we had already started, or we'd decided to make the film, and I can't remember what stage we got to, but we were working on it. And then Michael Fukushima, the producer at the National Film Board, who we knew anyway, got in touch and wondered if we'd like to collaborate. And so it wasn't like a collaboration from the start. They sort of came on board. So we were already established and making the film in Wales. And so we had to sort of try and work out what we could do in Canada and what we would do in Britain. But because of the way I work, it was very difficult to do a lot of the animation in Canada because we'd already got our small group of animators. Mm-hmm. So we decided that we'd do the sound design and all of the post-production in Canada. We do it, yeah, so we do it that way around. And so we used Oliver Calvert, who did the sound. But the post-production happened just at the same time as lockdown.
So we never went.
We were meant to go to Canada, right? But we didn't, and we couldn't get there. We still haven't been there. And so that was 2 years that we kept thinking, well, it was 18 months ago. Well, it was 2 years ago. And we were thinking, oh, we'll be all right in a couple of months. We'll get over. And we waited and waited and waited. And in the end, we thought, well, this isn't going to change, you know. So
we can't travel. So we basically did all that in Cardiff. You know, we did the post-production sound and picture there. And it worked out really well in the end, didn't it? It was a bit of a bummer not being able to go to Canada. I've flown over it so many times. I've never actually.
I've been there.
No, you've been there. Yeah.
Well, there's an open invitation for you anytime you want to join us at the Spark Festival next year for sure.
Fab.
Okay, we'll take you up on that.
Yeah, we got this as evidence.
Yeah, we've got visual.
You can stay at our house, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Got a spare room. Mentioning COVID, something that's happened across the VFX industry anyway is people are now working from home and working with people from all different time zones. It's an amazing thing. I work with the UK in the morning and Korea in the evening, and now people are all over the world. I wonder, do you see animation changing like that? Do you think we'll be all continuing to stay at home? Does it matter where you are in the world?
I don't think it does matter. I mean, the actual doing of it, I don't think it matters where you are because everything's digital now. So it's all files and they fly around all over the world. So that doesn't matter. It is nice to be in a room with people, I have to say. And when you're working on a project and you have a team, it is nice to be with people. You know, when you're at a creative stage and you're bouncing off ideas and saying, oh, what does that do? Do you think that looks better there? Or do you think that, you know, I don't know how you do without all of that, you know, when you're at that stage when you need feedback, but not official feedback that you bother to put in an email, just sort of general banter. But I do think it has changed everything enormously. And like we're at home now and we've got a studio, but I'm still much more comfortable just staying at home. I just got used to it, and I think most people have.
It's like office workers now. You know, the 50% of office workers who trooped into the centre of London or big cities or whatever to the office don't do it anymore. You know, and even the businesses themselves have recognised that and say they make work more efficiently at home. As long as they get the work done, it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, I love this Zoom business because it sort of unites you easily with anybody anywhere, you know, and I get used to it, don't you?
Yeah, and I think as well, I'm a night person. I work better from 10 o'clock onwards and so I work much better if I'm working through the nights. And so working in a studio is a bit difficult because I then have to get up in the morning and go into the studio and I'm tired because I've been up working. So I think for people like me who have got different clocks, you know, where their working pattern is different. If they haven't got like big families that they've got to look after, if they haven't got all those sort of domestic responsibilities and the freedom to work when you want, then working at home is great.
I just wanted to say thanks so much for sharing, your thoughts and inspirations. It's been really interesting. And we would love you to come back to us next year, maybe a masterclass. We'll set that up. Our fantastic students from Sparkle will love to be working with you. And the insights into the storytelling, I'm super excited, and I can't wait to find out what Beryl's going to do next. So yeah, short and sweet, okay, but yeah, we don't want to say goodbye to her. So on behalf of Spark, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, and thank you, Sue. Thank you so
Really
much.
enjoyed it.
Enjoy, and what a shame we're not there, but
Yeah.